has also shared their video with us. Let's have a look at the video. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome our esteemed panelists. We are joined today by Dr. Puneet Agarwal, Chief Technology Officer, Zensa Technologies Limited. Mr. Ankush Sabharwal, Founder and CEO, CoreOver.ai. Sachin Punyani, Business Development Lead, AI, ML, Analytics, IoT, Amazon Internet Services. Rahul Prasad, Co-founder, CTO, Wobble AI Technologies. Srini Sandaka, CTO, Mauri Tech. Ajay Agarwal, Senior Vice President and Head of COE, Analytics, Happiest Minds. To lead the session, I would like to invite Mr. Rohit Purohit, CEO, Visual Cloud Technologies Private Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, to know more about the speakers, you can download the show catalog from the upper tab on the right-hand side of the screen called the Handout tab. If you're ready, let's begin our session. Over to you, Mr. Purohit.
Thank you, Sneha, and warm welcome to everyone. Indeed, it's a very right time to talk about the transformation that India witnessed. That you also in terms of AI, IoT, and machine learning. That indeed India, all know, a builder of IT solutions for billions across the world. It is reported that India is looking at the expected growth of IT sector nearly $350 billion in the next 5 years. Indeed, that is not because just limited to the time we are in, because it's also due to the new normal that we are facing currently in terms of the extraordinary times of this decade or maybe this century. The new normal is not limited to wearing mask or maintaining social distance anymore. It is extended to the point where every industry and the size of business are riding on digital transformation journey, leveraging new tools to operate more efficiently during such times, to reach out to new customers, doing new innovations, bringing more customers, understanding more customer perspectives. And that set the stage for all of us, right? The stage for a demand, right? It generates a demand and a demand to leverage emerging technologies to deliver such digital solutions faster, more reliable, scalable, and across the platforms. And because of this, we are witnessing unprecedented growth in terms of adopting these emerging technologies at a pace which was never imagined before. Needless to say, that the emerging technologies are no longer taking years to mainstream. Thanks to modern technologies of modern days for modern businesses. You may have seen kids conversing with Alexa as a first quest, or maybe your elder getting on a WhatsApp or a Zoom calls to meet relatives to get to yoga. Technology is everywhere. It is in fact a sign of progress. Adoption of new technologies has never been easy. Building new solutions is faster than ever much before. I think in this session it will be very interesting to understand what we bring you insight from those who are anchoring these technologies in the life of millions, starting from a virtual insurance agents to an automated voice-enabled ordering machine. Today, we will be talking about how these innovations are driven in new normal. What are the changes, right, and the innovation observed in the consumer or customer engagements across the channels, be it in the name of AI, outside of AI. To what degree AI has been integrating virtual and physical world for successful customer services. What opportunities cloud is bringing for a digital future, and how does our digital future looks like. I'm very excited and very happy to welcome our panel today. I think to start with, it would be very obvious to talk about the innovation as we've discussed before, right? So my first question goes to Dr. Puneet. Dr. Puneet, he has been leading technological solutions innovations at Genesis for many years. And there is a perfect way to ask this question, right, from a perspective of his thought leadership and at a Genesis level, that what organizational changes did COVID bring in the innovation life cycle to build or to improvise products and services for new normal? What role customer feedback plays in it? Over to you, Dr. Puneet.
Thank you, Rohit. Thank you asking for such a nice question. And hello, everyone there. I hope you're enjoying your Saturday. So, in the post-COVID world, unlike Rohit, whom I see working from office, most of us are still working from home. At least you can see the background. I'm at home, and what I observe is that the focus on learning has gained momentum. I have not seen people so keen to learn new technologies ever before. They learn things such as cloud, digital, analytics, deep learning, everything these days from home. They have extra time and they invest that time in learning. And this has given significant impetus to our initiatives to upskill our associates also. Not only just that for innovation, but overall the trend is changing. And another aspect of this, which is that I observe that our customers are also not untouched by this phenomena. They are also learning new things. And this atmosphere of learning all around has fueled the desire to innovate, to co-innovate on both sides, on our side as well as our customer side. And our customers' belief, our belief in modern AI and deep learning related technologies is getting strengthened by day by day. More we learn, better we feel about it, more we observe what is possible. Our people show us what becomes possible, etc. So that in my view is a key change in the post-COVID world. They focus on learning. So that's a short answer to first part of your question, Rohit. The second, you asked about the customer feedback. Well, staying to the topic of co-innovation, most of these co-innovation projects result in a mind share with our customers because we spend time with them working on something novel, learning something new together. And this results in downstream projects with our customers many times. And because of the mutual trust that we develop during that phase of co-innovation, it strengthens our relationship as well. And you also asked about the services at Zensar. So yes, in the recent time, very recently, we have repositioned ourselves a bit. And let me give you a perspective on the spectrum of services that we offer to our customers in a realigned situation. We have identified five strategic growth opportunities, as we call SGOs, and that's where we are putting most of our bets on. And the first one being experience services, which has got something to do with product research, design, brand management, campaign management, etc. The second group of offerings come under the umbrella of advanced engineering services, mostly related to cloud native development, DevOps type of stuff. The third and a very interesting one is data engineering and analytics related services, for data governance, data lakes, NLP, computer vision. All of that are covered under this third group of offerings that we have. And the fourth one is application services and platforms, platforms such as SFDC, Oracle, and cloud and things like that. And fifth and most important one is the called foundation services. The focus there is on the infrastructure, digital workplace for that matter, and things like that. And the biggest thing is that we observe that these offerings, this consolidation of offerings under these five groups resonates very well with customers. And so that's a change that I've seen, consolidation of services, and like I said earlier, focus on learning and the co-innovation with our customers. So that's what is happening most of the days. Rohit, with that, I'll pass the baton back to you, Rohit. I hope it covers my perspective on these.
Indeed. Thanks for the insight. I think, there is a point there that the transformation is not just limited at the enterprise which is receiving the technology services or the digital services. I think it is all across the places, right? And it's not limited to the scale or the size of a business itself. It's everywhere. It's like ubiquitous. In this aspect, I think, I would like to request Ajay to talk about how in the new normal, right, how a modern day digital transformation is shaping life. And importantly, how is the industry responding to it?
Thank you, Rohit, and it's a real pleasure to be here. Continuing with what Puneet mentioned, first let me touch upon what the new normal is. Then let's look at how role technology is playing and how it's getting adapted across the industry. Now, it's a fact that COVID has been a disruptor. It has enabled the digital boom, and what it means is that there is an accelerated, an increased investment on the digital initiatives. Now, this is also supported by the fact that McKinsey, mentioned that every industry which has adopted the 4.0 initiatives, they have been much better and stronger in adapting these challenges, compared to other industries. If you look at, of customer, the customer behavior also has got impacted, and a side effect of that has been there has been more price sensitivity, value-based buying, and also the perceived value of the, of the brand is also taken a hit. Now, with this change in behavior, there is an impact on technologies as well. For example, if we look at, say, machine learning, isn't it? And we are all told that the more data that you have, the more accurate your forecasting would be. But because there's a shift in the way customer is behaving, the sensing of customer also has taken a shift, and it necessitates the need of a new model like agent-based learning, which will enable you to sense the environment and adapt to the real-time environment and be less dependent on the historic data. Now, there's also a shift in the way we are communicating with human, in the sense human touch and digital communication. And this is something that will be touched upon, by the other eminent panelists, especially conversational interface. Now, coming to the role of technology for digital future, in the past, if we look at IoT, we were very happy that IoT is able to connect the vehicle, machines, and and people and collect data from it. And from an AI and machine learning perspective, we could get some set of data and try to do forecasting and prediction around that. Similarly, from an AI perspective, we could actually look at using OCR, NLP, or video or image analytics, and to derive some decision or aid some process-related flow in the organization. Now, what the new digital would actually mean is that you will have to leverage all these technologies, to redefine your business processes. You have to integrate across the entire value chain. You have to build a scalable platform. And the outcome of this would be, the enriched customer experience, actionable insight, as well as optimized performance, And what it also, the other outcome that we have seen in our experience is that you are also able to transform your business model. For example, if you are a large industrial supply chain leader and you are actually providing managed service to your customers, the digital future could actually enable to have a SaaS-based offering around that, thereby driving better, customer experience, enabling scale, as well as getting more ROI around that. Now, integrating this value chain is a very key aspect, which is very nicely depicted by something like a digital thread. And what it means is that you give the right information, to the right stakeholder at the right time. Generally we are used to working in silos, but now let's say, for example, you have a social media event or a product service review or a return or a geopolitical situation. Now, what this digital thread will enable is that it will give you the right information. Like the R&D team will actually get information so that they can improve their focus on the product development. Manufacturing team can optimize their operation. Supply chain can have a lean inventory around that. And the finance team will be able to do better forecasting and services around that. So from a digital stack perspective, is no more working on a silos. If you look at from a IoT perspective, it was more of IT OT transformation, and then came the modern data platform initiative, where we said, we'll get the data and have consumption on top of it. Now going forward, AI also will become a part of that stack. So AI as a service, data as a service would be something that will be available to all industries and and provided by the platform provider. Now, how are the industries adopting it? Again, the adoption by the industry depends. There is no one, one fit that suits all. It all depends on what maturity and what status you have, and there are multiple opportunities that we are all aware of, the unicorns and the health tech, edutech, and other areas that are there. But let me take an example of a energy, segment. And I've been following the startup world, and I could see a lot of focus coming on cyber security on the energies, because as some of these traditional industries are opening up, adopting IT and transformation, cyber security is going to be a key aspect. I see startup coming around that. Then I see innovation where companies which are not coming from an energy background, they are coming from a technology background, and they are saying, we'll provide you a SaaS service around using IoT and machine learning, where we could connect all your assets on renewable energy, whether it's solar or wind, power, whatever that is, and use that to give you a SaaS-based service where your assets could be connected, and we'll take care of the maintenance, operationalizing, and support around that. So in a sense, multiple things coming out of all this. And from an industry leader, who has been in this space for, say, for example, 5 to 6 decades, they are leveraging the technologies like AI, ML, data science to improve upon the experience of their internal customer, like digitizing their procedure documents using AI, ML to effectively do field service operation, identify the asset criticality, leverage the digital twin, and monitor all your critical assets. And this is actually paving a way to more modern, cost-effective, safe, and efficient operations. Now, obviously, not everything is hunky-dory. Anything that comes in, it comes with its set of challenges. So one thing is, a digital transformation or a digital future for each of the industry participants will be different. It won't be like it will not be the same, fit, same suit that will fit on. There are also concerns around privacy, security, empathy, emotional, handling of emotional matters, and so on and so forth. But the good part is, both from an organization perspective as well as from the governing bodies like countries, there have been huge effort to put in the compliance, the regulation, the ownership to build trust, while we are leveraging this technologies. Like the regulation on AI, came from EU, recently. GDPR is also given from a data governance perspective. So in summary, I think, we are living in a exciting and a dynamic world. There's a lot of innovation and tech adoption that is happening, and it's only going to increase by the day. Now we are used to saying health tech, ed tech, food tech, but I think this tech work will become ubiquitous, and it will be a permanent fixture across all the industries, whether it's new or old. Right.
Insightful. So to summarize that, what I hear is there are different solutions which are evolving constantly. There is a need which is evolving constantly. There are different services which are provided to the industry which is also evolving constantly. And there are different partnerships which are also evolving constantly. So more or less, right, as a part of a value chain, every entity has a role to play, and it's more towards partnership rather than just a vendor and the client relationship. Just to summarize, in a way, like, and this is how it has been evolving. So that means if you say 40 to 50 years old company is also willing to invest into a new emerging technology, those are yet to be tested, right? And that means that there is already a time where these technologies are adopted. These are already mainstream. This is not, we are talking about a future. We are talking about a present. Like the another example that you mentioned, very interesting example about the conversational AI, right? There are a lot of different ways, where the conversational AI has been creating its own space. And the solutions those are being built are being adopted also across the places. In that same respect, I think, I would like to mention one of the panels here, right? It's a very known name, CoreOver, right? So we have Ankush with us from CoreOver. I would like to start with asking a very simple question, taking from where Ajay has left, right? I will just pick one of the point, which is the conversational AI, and it came to my mind, of course, to talk about CoreOver to start with. But if you could help us to know, and the audience, what exactly is a conversational AI? How this is different? Why it is not called a chatbot only? Chatbot with advanced features. Why it is conversational? What does it make it a conversational?
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Rohit, for asking this. Yeah. So we do just AI, conversational AI chatbot, kind of day and night. See, the conversational AI, I would say it's a tech, it's a tech platform. It's not the solution as such. But as you know, we cannot just take tech and give it to the masses and give it to the citizens to use it. We have to use the tech and build some meaningful applications. And that application would be chatbot or voice bot or video bot or probably virtual assistant. So to just kind of summarize, conversational AI is a platform. It's a tech platform with which we create applications like chatbot, voice bot, and video bots.
Interesting. Thanks for simplifying that. So it's not just limited to one way to look at it, right? Rather, it's a platform where you keep evolving, you keep building different channels of a communication. So in a way, you are establishing new mode of communicating with machines, and that's what you mentioned about a conversational AI.
That's correct.
I have a follow-up question. Hope you don't mind.
Okay. Yes, please.
How AI, cloud, and all this conversion between AI, cloud, and IoT, for example, right? When you talk about a phone talking to you or a car talking to you, you talk about an IoT. Then you also talk about a cloud and AI. How is it all these things, are converging together and provide opportunities to build solutions? Those are sector agnostic, cost effective, and easy to adopt. For example, if you build something, right, which is just responding to a human question, it's not just question is not just limited to one industry, right? It could be applicable to the other industry. So there are a lot of solutions which are being built, which are very sector agnostic, cost effective, and easy to adopt. But how these things are coming up together in terms of the AI, cloud, and IoT, and when we talk about a conversational AI.
Yeah. So very comprehensive question. I think I would really want to talk a lot, and let me see how much I can cover in the time allocated to me. If you see, you said AI, cloud, and IoT, right? So in these lines, we can have multiple technologies also. But if you see, if I go to basic, why AI is a buzz now? So whoever has done, say, engineering, say, 20, 30 years ago, so did they not study anything which is not being implemented now in concept of the real technology, the algorithms? Now what has happened, so that whatever we studied, that has become more accessible, right? So data is more, computing is cheaper, the bandwidth is easily accessible at low cost, and GPUs and CPUs we can span in spur of seconds, not even minutes. So AI was there, but not much talked about, but not that meaningful because of lack of computing accessibility and the data. And yes, a bit of algorithm, but people were smart even that time to even write the algorithms. The main, I think, was lacking was the computing and the data to kind of leverage the history and leverage the experience what users have it, and make it a repeatable model in the form of virtual assistants. So yeah, so it's just about kind of making it accessible, and IoT, yes, so things were even done earlier in IoT, but now things are so much well packaged. If you think about Raspberry Pi, talk more about how we provide the solution. We have even provided AI for a manufacturing company. We integrated with their kind of cigarette manufacturing machines using Raspberry Pi. So we integrated AI with the tech. You think about, say, Alexa for manufacturing, not just limited to home lighting and entertainment. So think about providing AI in manufacturing tech in combination with IoT. All basic concepts, but now things are being packaged in IoT form, AI form, and even cloud, right? So it's cloud for us, but it's actually a physical server somewhere in Mumbai or in Pune or the data centers where it's coming up, right? It's how earlier we used to have blade servers. In one blade server, say 10 VMs are running. It's the same concept. It's just the package is different. Now, so if I now talk about the philosophy of all this conversational AI chatbot, why these things are important, to give some kind of background, and why we came into this industry, right? If you see, there are hundreds of chatbot companies, if not thousands, and we know that. And in fact, we are the youngest in this space. We are really the youngest. Yeah, Puneet, I could see your nod. We are really the youngest. You can pick up any company you see; they would have kind of launched before us. But we had kind of realized, right? So I myself, from corporate, I had around 15 years of experience before starting this. Had seen while building these SaaS-based platforms and enterprise tech, we found out it's not just the functional and the technical requirements what matters when a product, not just a software product, but any other product also. If you pick up any 3 or 4 companies in a sector, right, whether it's FMCG, travel, or BF, any 3 or 4 companies in any sector, they have what consumers look for. You think about, you think in your mind any travel or FMCG or any retail company. So they have what consumers look for, but still in our mind, we know, hey, this is number one company, right? I would prefer to do business, or I would prefer to buy stuff from that company. Number one, number two, number three. Now, what is that beyond functional and beyond technical? So I think it's about user experience, right? It's about how user gets engaged and how fast companies understand their users, respond to them. May not solve all the problems, right? So we are human beings, right? So we want to be heard. We all know all problems cannot be solved, especially now the population is growing and even consumers are growing for each company. So giving ears is important. But then, of course, why not solve the same problem which we have already solved? And so if you see our client list, we always try to give virtual assistant to the big customers. So we don't have any small client or customer as of now, because we see the big customers having big consumers to kind of cater, and they would have already solved that problem for others, and it is easy to repeat. And see, we build bots, we build virtual assistant. We also know we consumers, we don't want to talk to the bots, right? If you see the most of our videos are on, we are social beings, we want to talk to the real people. So if it's a small company having less users, maybe a company getting 10 to 20 calls a day, no one can replace humans, right? So it's just argumentation when there are so many calls, so many customer queries, and then to kind of cater to that. So we politely say no to many companies who reached out to us, where they actually don't need the chatbots. So now, while now we understand, hey, consumer experience, user experience is important, but we have also done surveys, multiple surveys, to find out, hey, now so many consumers who I'm talking about, they all must have different problems, and how do we solve it? But again, very, very surprisingly, we saw any industry, any company, you pick up, you can really average, very, very clearly, you can average around 70% of the questions, complaints, or suggestions, or issues which consumers come up with, they are saying. Any industry, any company, right? So 70%, not 100%. So it's just identifying those 70% and automating that. So And automating means those questions or problems or issues should have been probably once solved by any application or manually, and then we kind of use automation to get it done automatically. And now where the AI comes in. So now if you see, there are multiple people, multiple languages, and some prefer to chat, some prefer to interact by voice, some prefer to interact with video, and even some prefer to come to web, mobile or WhatsApp and SMS or phone call. And so you see, right? So the user should be free to talk to any company in the format of their choice, like voice, text, or video, based on the circumstances they are in, and any language of their choice, while limited to just English, Hindi, if I talk about Indian context, right? So, Hindi is North Indian languages, right? Not many people kind of down south speak Hindi. So, if you see most of the websites, right, corporate, private companies' websites are in English, and most of the utility in the public sector, yes, English, Hindi, and regional languages are there. So, but if you see Bangalore, I was just reading somewhere that there are around 30 plus languages are being spoken. So idea is we should not restrict users talking to our companies in the language what we prefer. They should be able to kind of talk to us in the language they prefer, right? And not even the language and the format, but also should be the accessibility and channel. If they don't have internet, but still there are around 40-50% people in India which they don't use internet frequently. So they prefer talking on phone, right? We cannot avoid phone, which we have been using since long. Not everyone can come to mobile app and website to kind of use it. Now WhatsApp is kind of growing. So if they're comfortable interacting with us in WhatsApp, let that be. I think now the industry has acknowledged that and they are adopting WhatsApp. So idea is any channel, any format, and any language. Now, if I go a little tech, any platform. That means now if I'm letting consumer to talk to a company in any way possible, it's just a matter of focusing to provide queries or resolutions to 70% of their request. So now how about the employees in that companies if they have to say talk to the machines? So again, there can be a virtual assistant. We have done that using a bot, voice bot. You can start the machine, stop the machine, and ask the machine what's the problem with you. Why the heck you are not starting? So machine can say, hey, there is a problem. If paper is jam, if it's in the case of cigarette, or this kind of there is a rod breaking issue or multiple issues. There can be thousands of issues. Interestingly, those machines know where is the issue. It's just about identifying, hey, this is the error code, or probably what's the issue and how do we fix it. So the idea is even the back end can be anything. So it's not just about FAQ. You ask a question, you get 3 answers, click and all that. Those are there. That's probably some small use cases have that need. But when we build the chatbots or the virtual assistants, when you really use the conversational AI platform, it should be deeply integrated with any backend system, whether it's IoT or it's maybe the railway system, complex railway systems, or any e-commerce system, or any telecom or retail system, or any banking system, so that user talks to any portal, whether it's e-commerce or banking portal or probably the travel portal, the way user talks to another person. You'll be kind of surprised to know in India, it's still 3% of the consumers who use e-commerce. I was told, and I was thinking it's 5%. It was 3, and after COVID it's 5. But when I checked the data around 7 to 8 days ago, it is still 3%. So only 3% of the people, and we think it's saturated market. Only 2 or 3 big players. No, we see the people. I'm sure the people who are got connected here, we all are privileged people. That is not the representation of critical mass, say in just India. And even by the way, US is not that advanced in that matter. US is still even 15% adoption. And how about say 97% people in India, they still go to Dukan, Kirana guy, or the merchant store to buy stuff. Why it is so? I think it's hard to believe, but this is a perception which we have built. Add to cart, checkout, all those things did not come to us normally. We learned fast, right? Not everyone can learn fast. So we live in the kind of society, the ecosystem we learn. But you think about rest 80-90% of the people where they stay, add to cart. And the kind of virtual assistants that we have created for e-commerce, it is as good as a consumer is talking to the kirana guy or the merchant guy. So the idea is you let user talk to any system. The user should not be worried about which language, user's language, and user should not be even worried about the lingos of add to cart and whatever the technology lingos which we have kind of uh, invented and used and made it complex for them. So users should just be the replica of the actual physical interaction happens. The same should be replicated in the web, and slowly we kind of move on. I think I could answer your question and add some perspective to it. Happy
Yeah.
for any other questions.
Bush, interesting insights. So, in a way, there were, not enough resources back in the days, and these technologies, the need of these technologies were already there. The moment the industry evolved, the resources were made available, and then suddenly there is market, right? Market of a different size. Maybe the fitment could be limited to kind of problem that they have, but eventually it's a chicken egg story, right? Demand was already there, but now we are able to cater to those demands, and there is a huge amount of a scope and the pie for everybody who would like to go and serve those demands. Right? And this is how these things are converging. And second point, what you mentioned is about conversion, or let's say the integration, the back integration is being done also gradually, right? It is evolving. Let's say 70% of the questions are the same questions. So that means your model does not need to be retrained, right? You can have it ready and you can maybe respond to 70% of the question. Beyond that, then there is a human touch, right? You can still program around it. So very diversified applications of AI, IoT, and a cloud. Now it leads to a next question. I think a question a kind of would like touch upon the understanding what Srini would have. Right? Srini represents a company called Maori, and it's a very large company, sizable company. It has been solving a lot of problems for a lot of customers. So they have been, I think I would say the right way to look at it is like they are helping their global customers, right, across various phases of their digital transformation journey. Based on what I understand, Srini, from a technology standpoint, you have been helping customers starting from strategy or let's say ideation to implementation, right? What are your observations on the demand side of the industry, right? That they want this or that or the other solutions, let's say, increase the productivity or reducing the cost or whatever it is, right? What are your observations on the demand side of the industry for building AI and IoT solutions over the cloud? What kind of changes these solutions are bringing to a digital future? Because you would also be able to see that what your customers are trying to do for their customers. Right. So from that perspective, just Srini, I guess we've got some issues with connectivity. So, yeah, Srini, you there? All right. So I think maybe I can spin off a little question around that. So Puneet, in perspective, in the similar line, right? Because you also mentioned that you have core offerings and then you are combining all these offerings as a part of you actually partner with customer and solve their problem, right? So give us some more details on what kind of opportunities are you seeing in the market with respect to AI, IoT, and ML, and that too, what kind of changes that it is bringing to a digital future, or what is a digital future? Maybe it is just what we are seeing or what we could see.
Sure, Rohit. So, first remark I'll make is I talked about those 5 groups of services. AI is pervasive. AI goes across all of them, whether it is infrastructure, experience services, advanced engineering services. AI is everywhere today, and people want to do that. Secondly, giving you a little more perspective on both the sides, I see some questions from the R&D view also. So let me cover that aspect also. As the services, because at Zen is responsible for both managing our R&D center called Zen Labs and also responsible for business in AI and ML. So work in all areas such as decision management is one key area, data analytics, optimization, advanced methods of the reinforcement learning are seeing adoption. Second is natural language processing, semantic AI, starting from conversational systems Ankush talked about, to document processing, legal document processing. Tons of use cases explored in these areas, whether it is extraction of information from various sources on internet, that's coming at the forefront. The use cases related to computer vision, virtual reality, and bringing that platforms such as these Unity and so many things have demand in the of consumer services, manufacturing industries a lot. The fourth, I would say, is the blockchain and distributed ledger. It's finding a lot of traction with the BFSI, with the consumer services segment. And finally, I cannot miss about, I should say, IoT related services in high-tech, manufacturing, and all this recent impetus on 5G is going to bring renewed attention to these areas. Apart from this, let me also give you more ground or lower level examples of, like you said, in the AI and ML, where we are getting traction from our customers. So, couple of phenomena. I'll also touch what's happening in the deep learning side of the AI cutting edge technology side of it. A lot has happened in the area of natural language processing in recent times, Rohit and others. I'm sure you'll all agree, right? That we have these newly found transformer neural networks and these pre-trained language models. Right? With the advent of these pre-trained language models, I'm seeing, like I said, a completely new energy in our customers, in our own organization, to understand the unstructured text. So it's been there, but got completely renewed interest, I should say. Next, I would want to mention the computer vision side of it, where we're able to achieve a lot better accuracies and various tasks like Ankush was mentioning, or Ajay was mentioning actually, OCR and other related areas. So I think computer vision, virtual reality, all of that is seeing a tremendous push there. The third example that comes to my mind is of generative AI. Generative AI finds traction for hyper personalization in e-commerce business, in the consumer services. That's a big trend, and the customers show tremendous interest in these kinds of things. Just to give context on what is generative AI, it's a form of AI that can generate images, paragraphs, documents, etc., almost as good as what human can do, right? And in fact, people are exploring very, very interesting use cases to customize products, to design gift basket automatically using generative adversarial networks, which is the key technique behind these generative AI, generative adversarial networks. People in short call it GAN. Yeah, they are all over the place. Everybody wants to work in these areas. Another important trend which is coming is bringing multiple technologies together, Rohit. Yeah, and not only are people, also customers get delighted, they get surprised by interesting things that become possible by bringing multiple technologies together. For example, bringing blockchain and AI together, bringing RPA and computer vision capabilities together into one solution. combining computer vision and virtual reality has been there for significant time, but I see that hitting mainstream business now. And particularly, I would again repeat, blockchain, we are seeing a tremendous push in the recent time. Cutting edge work is happening in the area of these tokenization, fungible or non-fungible tokenization, decentralized finance, DeFi as we call it. That's another trend that I see. Another thing I want to discuss is about when you said, Rohit, that can we train these models and they be ready to serve us? It's a question that often occurs, is that most of the AI happens with this supervised learning, where we have to sit and create training data and create these levels. I mean, is it scalable? If you want to achieve AI, let's say 10 years from now, how much of training data will we need to create separately for every task like we try to do today? I mean, imagine that if every task in the world we want to automate and there has to be a training data for everything, the volume of training data we will need to create as a humanity, what would it be? It will be tremendous, right? But these new technologies of self-supervised learning that are coming, where system is able to understand and learn the pattern of the data itself, I have seen performing better than the traditional way of doing that. The traditional way was that you have training data, you train your model, and you test it on similar data. But now the self-supervised learning, you train on phenomenal amount of data without knowing what the task is, and when you start using it for a certain purpose, it starts performing slightly better, I should say, definitely better than the old methods on unseen data or out of sample data, as we call it. So those are the trends that I'm seeing. And lastly, I want to mention one more important point to all of you is that because Ankush was also talking about what has changed recently, I want to mention that most of the AI models are stochastic in nature. We all understand, and they are not perfect. That is, they seldom give you 100% accuracy. Correct. So, using this new age digital technologies such as the Angular of the world and the React of the world, right? We try and create solutions that bring human in the loop to cover that gap in accuracy, and that ultimately becomes more important than anything else, right? And because that makes this whole solution more usable, adaptable, because the customers want a solution that works. They're not ready to accept the gap in accuracy, right? So with that, I think that gives you a summary of what kind of technologies and what kind of projects are we working on and where we are seeing more traction. But all I would say is very, very forward-looking, path-breaking conversations are happening now with the advent of these technologies, and we look forward to very, very exciting times ahead, Rohit.
Indeed. There is no second thought around it. Definitely. In fact, the transformation has already started. We all are of it. One way or just of us to realize at what stage we are, and when we are going to settle down very soon. That's definitely a way forward. You mentioned very interesting aspect about the model, retrained models, and also the sum of things, the role of various different technologies like React, Angular, and so on and so forth. Now, I used to touch upon certain things, and that gave a direction also to another aspect that you put in. I would like a very complex critical question. When we talk about the conversation AI, right, and when we talk pre-trained model, or let's say having a pre-trained model based on what you understand, right, that on a supervised learning or whatever, in the scheme of a thing that we try to say that this model is learned or not. What are your opinions around, let's say, how does conversational AI help enterprises and consumers based on these models? Those are all Can you give some examples?
Rohit, you were breaking up a little. I don't know. The question was for Rahul, I guess.
Yes, there's like some internet issues. The question to you is, I'm just going to read. Let's say we talk about various pre-trained models, all the models.
Sorry to interrupt, your voice is breaking. Do you mind switching off the video and trying again?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Is this better?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Just and then, so what Puneet mentioned, really very interesting aspects around the models on which the decisions to respond to specific query of user depends on, right? So you keep building stronger and better models, you keep having a better result. Better results, that means better acceptance, better sensitization about about these technologies, that it works eventually. Now, when we talk about these models and the conversation that a human is doing with a machine, right? And then what Ankush initially mentioned, look at conversational AI as a platform. Now, a question that I have, which I would like to ask you, is that how does this conversational AI platform help enterprises and consumers from the perspective of solving certain problems? What are the limitations that they see? And in which, like, can you give some examples? What are the outcomes also in the respect of implementation of such conversational AI solutions?
Sure. Too many questions bunched in once. I'll try to answer one of them, and I'll be quick.
I thought without a breakup, I dump all the questions and maybe you will pick up some of those.
So let me first tell you about. Okay, so you asked to give some examples of conversational AI. I'll give you an example of how we are using conversational AI in Pobble. So I'll give you a simple example. Let's say I'm talking to you. In fact, I'm chatting with you, and I tell you that my weekend is free. चल कॉफी पीने चलते हैं. ठीक है. Let's add the keyboard. So okay, let me tell you about our product first. So our product is the keyboard. We are known for our flagship product. It's called Bobble keyboard. We also have created Mint keyboard for Xiaomi, and in Sri Lanka and Indonesia, IM3 keyboard and Hutch keyboard. We have 30 million plus users, and it's growing very rapidly. So using our keyboard, if you write weekend free है चल कॉफी पीने चलते हैं, what our keyboard will do is it will understand natural language understanding what you are talking about, and then it will suggest you a sticker, and use this sticker where you are holding a cup, you are wearing a dress, and the sticker has your own face on it. By the way, this sticker is created using GAN, as Dr. Puneet was saying, talking about GAN. We use GAN to create these stickers. Your head is created into an avatar, and this sticker is created where the text is written. So we are able to do so because we understand the language. We are able to understand the language because we have trained our conversational models on the text, on the kind of text that user use in day-to-day conversation. Now suppose the sticker, I sent you the sticker, and then suppose we are enabling a brand. Let's say the cloth that you are wearing on the sticker, that has Nike brand on it, Adidas brand on it, some brand on it. Let's say the cup you are holding in the sticker, it has Starbucks brand on it. It's a very subtle way of advertisement. So this way we are enabling brands to become part of users' conversation, and we are enabling users to become more expressive. So it solves two problems at once, and this we call as conversation media platform. This has been possible because of the research that we have done over a long period of time on conversation media. So we have been developing our keyboard. Everything works on artificial intelligence. The suggestion that comes, the prediction that comes, the auto correction that happens, everything happens on artificial intelligence. And during this course of time, we realized that the technology that we have been working on, the technology which is already present in the market, It's present for English, it's present for Hindi, it's present for, let's say, Malayalam, it's present for a specific language. But when user talks, they do not talk in Hindi, they do not talk in English, they mix these languages. Example that I gave you, weekend is free, chal coffee pine chalte hain. This is not English, this is not Hindi. This is, I'm also not using Hindi character set. I'm in fact using Roman character set, CHALOCFE, something like that. So understanding this is a huge challenge because there's no set grammar and there's no set vocabulary. KYYA and KYA, two user will write kya in different ways, and you have to understand that they are writing the same thing. There are some words which have multiple meanings in English and Hindi and Malayalam. So that is one of the major challenges that we have been facing. We have solved it, and in fact now, as Ankush was saying, 3% of the users are using e-commerce. Rest are not using the e-commerce. Rest are not using the technology platforms. Why? Because they are not able to communicate with the platform. Let's say if e-commerce is the platform, they are not able to communicate with that. Let's say if Alexa is the platform, they are not able to communicate. Alexa might be a bad example because people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, they do not have Alexa. But assume simple mobile applications. People are not able to use it because they are not able to converse with it. So imagine if we enable other companies, let's say someone who provides credit, microfinance institutions. Let's say another example will be e-commerce. So if we enable them through our conversation AI technologies, they will be able to grow their customer base. In fact, their customers will also be happy because customers will be more satisfied if they don't have to use a specific thing, and if they do not feel like they are talking to a bot. Because if you're talking to a bot, you need to click on something, you need to be very specific about what you are saying, and bot only understand few things. Let's say if it's make my trip, they will train their bot regarding cancellation, regarding booking, regarding flight change. But when user comes up with their problem, it might not be very specific to that. It might be something that they need to describe. And when they need to describe it, bots will not understand it. Only through conversation AI solutions, machine can understand it and then can take action on it. So that's about it. That's the example. I hope I was able to make it clear. Right.
It's definitely, quite exciting to understand it as well. So maybe in the time to come, we may expect that we build our own bots, right? And what to respond when my wife sends me a text message or when my sends me a text message. What am I supposed to say, right? Like,
in fact, we are working on that. We are working on smart replies. So when you start typing, it will suggest you the whole sentence. Our keyboard is coming up with technology very soon. So it's in our pipeline.
so that means you are, serving the need for billions without it being identified, right? Under the fear of
Especially this conversation technology, right? The AI, it's helping adapting some of the application, especially the Siri, right? Earlier, if I have to put the reminder, I have to spend at least 40 seconds to type these reminders, right? Now I use Siri, it's less than 10 seconds. Of course, my wife jokes about always about Siri. It's easy, right? So you can understand. I mean, Bank of America, they have the conversational capabilities with their banking. So when I drive, I just talk to my applications. You engage your application as you engage with another human being. It's not like you don't need to. I mean, there is a lot of demand even from the users to having a conversational capabilities for the application. Now they don't want to go to any application and click, get the information. It's not like that. They want to just, okay, Especially we are building some bots, employee self-service bots, meaning that if you want to know your what do you call that, for example, what is my leave balance? So it's simply a text message. It's simply a message, right? Or you can talk to your application saying that, okay, what balance, or can I apply leave? So it's a very quick creating a transaction, quickly creating a transaction. So the adaptability is more when you have a conversation capability to your application. That's what we see across the board.
You touched upon a point, right? I hope your wife is not really angry because you are talking to Siri in a very interesting way, right? In a happy way.
So I say that I like Siri because she is only listen to my words. she do what I ask her to do. She never say no. She never argue with me.
Yeah, that's the best part of a tech talk because your wife is not there, so you have a freedom also to talk around it. Anyways, but that's very interesting. Srini, yet again in a very nice way that you explain that how it is changing. For example, everyday's life, right? It brings to the another point also, which I would like Srini to respond on. So Srini, you have been solving a lot of problem, right? And you have been also part of the customer's journey to solve problem for their customers. So it brings a lot of learning also on the table, and you also get to see that what you are building for your customers maybe to the next level. What are your observation in terms of what the current platforms which are being built over the AI? What changes it could bring in day-to-day life of the enterprises or an individual?
Yeah, I mean, more and more, I see when we've been talking to so many customers, everybody's re-strategizing their business around the data. Okay, so nobody is seeing the value of the data that has been created as part of the day-to-day business operation. I think at least I talked to 20 different customers on their future, how they want to reshaping some of their programs or reshaping the future of their business. So majority of the customers, they're re-strategizing their business around the data. It's especially how they can monetize the data that is being generated off of their business process. So there is a lot of data. Let's say, for example, one of the logistics company, they've been generating the data from manufacturing all the way to the consumers. Even the manufacturers won't know how their products have been shipping through the various channels, through the supply chain, all the way up to the consumers. But these logistics companies are able to capture the data and they're able to provide some value insights to the businesses. So that way, some of these manufacturing companies, they build the new factories close to their consumers, and earlier they won't know that because the cost of the shipping the goods to the far distance is much more than setting up a factory close to the consumers is much more efficient. And these kind of business value that AI is creating customers, especially when the more and more I see the virtual and physical world, they're combining together. So in terms of if you take the manufacturing process, right? So the organizations are willing to create the digital twins. The digital twin is nothing but a precise virtual model of a product or of an equipment or a machine. So when you have a digital twin of your physical machine, it's easy for anybody to monitor the health of the machine from far distance, remote monitoring. So that is, again, another challenge that everybody experienced in all industries, any industry, right? So across the board. So these digital twins, they can give a advantage of monitoring your the machine. There are three components, right? IoT, cloud, AI. So IoT, all IoT does is collect the data, send to the cloud. Because why we have to use the cloud rather than on-premise? The cloud is easy to scale, and there are a lot of applications, a lot of things that are there in the cloud ready to use. It really accelerates the innovation. So a lot of startups, right? You see a lot of startups that because we don't need huge capital for you to start the company. If you have an idea, you can quickly subscribe to the cloud and start working on it. And most of these cloud, they're giving the free subscription and a lot of incentives for startups companies, right? So you can IoT devices can send the data and you can store it in the cloud. Then the third thing is the AI then will churn the data to create the meaningful insights. Then the business can quickly make a decisions and for better efficiency or you see with all these two technologies, these three components are very very key enablers for industry 4.0 adoption. Or it could be smart factories and smart supply chains and all of those things. Yeah.
So even in the IoT itself, right, there are edge computing and there are new evolving models of deploying the AI technologies. A lot of compute is also not getting done in the cloud and the data sanitization or ingestions and all. When it is compressed, right, then even that compressed data is going to the cloud. That is making it more efficient, right? That is also giving an opportunity for a solution architect to design a solution that can cater to different use cases, and that also very fast. That leads to a very important aspect of this discussion about the cloud. We have able to see the participants. I'm not sure if Sachin, are you there?
Yes. Yeah, I'm there, right?
Yeah. So Sachin, if you are there, I have a question here. Sachin?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I was not able to see you in the list. So Sachin, we talked about AI, we talked about cloud, and there are a lot of demand and supply side, and things are getting it together. And we, needless to say that a part of these discussions were around ability to deliver at a scale and at a pace also, which we have today, right? Thanks to cloud technologies. And AWS is very well known, right? Unless you are living in the cave and disconnected for the last 15-20 years, right? You may not know AWS, but everybody knows AWS. Now the question that I have is, what are the innovation or innovative solutions that AWS is building for this ecosystem? Because everybody comes out to these cloud service providers, right? And there are different demands and different requirements, different technologies evolving and all. So what are the innovative solutions AWS is building for the ecosystem to cater to this kind of a demand and services? With reference to IoT and AI solutions, right, which are purely secure and scalable.
Sure. Thanks for this question, Rohit. So at the points that all these eminent speakers were making, and if you observe actually all of them actually, they're all talking about one or the other solution to they're trying to build one or the other solution for their end customers, trying to solve the problem. So they're focused on how to solve the problems for their business operations. Maybe some of the things that never existed before, but they're trying to solve. The conversational AI that Ankush talked about, the NLP problem solution that Rahul talked about, and Dr. Puneet also listed down lots of problems. If you see something common, I add on to the list there, and you will see that there is a pattern in all around. During the pandemic, if you see we also did the virtual calls before the pandemic as well. But if you see now, you have in what almost all the solutions now, you have an option of like setting up the background, blurring the background, all those things. So that this is the demand of the user. This is the most demanded use case right now. One use case that I also observed in your platform as well, and is available in multiple other platforms, like when somebody is on mute, there might be some other noise, it's okay. But when some human speaks out, there is a pop-up that comes up, says that you are on mute, do you want to say something? So the human voice identified. If I just extend the same thing, we all had our exams, or the students had exams in the institute or the school by physically going there. But now we are all, these kids today are giving the exams in the virtual mode. Now we had the invigilators in the physical world. Now we have virtual proctors. can we have large number of human proctors sitting there watching the camera 24/7? Or do we need something who can do that proctoring automatically? Not just that, okay, student is not cheating, there is no voice coming out from somewhere, nobody is telling the student is not carrying any book, or all those things. So if you see some kind of pattern emerging out, all the people are trying to solve using some building blocks. They have some computer vision, face recognition, object recognition, all these kind of standard problems. If you look at the telecom service providers, they might be giving you broadband services, phone services, DTH services put together, so millions of customers together. And if there are challenges, and if everyone is giving a call back to their customer support center, I mean, nobody can handle that level of traffic. So some automatic conversational AI-based solutions are required. Now, if you look at all these patterns, one is like somebody has to build a solution from scratch, build a solution, look out for the solution components, start building that together. And if you ask the same thing that I'm talking about to Rahul and to Ankush, how they came up with the solution, they'll tell you that it's not that easy. Now, you have large number of solutions, you need the ready building blocks. That is where the innovation, first level of innovation comes in. I just gave the example of virtual proctoring. So you need object detection, face detection, all those things. So there are ready services in the cloud which you can leverage, and you start knitting the solution. You can't wait for a year or 2 years or some time to get the basic models out and then go for a solution in the market. Nobody has enough time, nobody has enough investment to do that, and there is no point like you fail after 2 years. You have a solution in mind, try out on the cloud, and then see that if it is succeeding, it's worth it, go and scale it out. Second point that Dr. Puneet also raised, that to build such a solution, you need huge data. So do you expect that everybody will have access to large set of data, quality data, to build those models? Now, companies like AWS, we have access to those data. We have spent enough, we have made already a large investment there. So taking an example of a service called Rekognition, Amazon Rekognition. So it's a ready computer vision service with lots of features. For example, you need to identify face, you need to compare the face, you need to identify now in these days PPE kits, security aspects. So all these things are ready building blocks. Now you think and start building the solution. Again, coming to that virtual proctoring use case, what now you need to do is you need to see that, okay, the person who registered for the exam is the person who is appearing. So you need to do the face comparison. One way is that you go and build your own face comparison model. Second is that, okay, start using that, build a solution around that, go for the virtual proctoring solution. Exactly same thing. I take one very interesting example. One of the old age home, they do not want to, I mean, they have 50 plus old people, and these old people go out, take a walk, sit in the park, but they do not want to intrude into the freedom of those old people. But at the same time, they're worried about their security, that somebody went out but has not returned back. So what do? They can't ask the old people to make an entry when they're going out, because it will intrude into their regular routine. So what they are trying to do is, they are trying to put 2 cameras on the gate. They are feeding in the images already. Now, as the person is going out, the image is taken up, and it is matched. Okay, this person is going out, so there is an entry automatically being made without intruding into somebody's life. When the old person went out, when he came back, so see the kind of use case that they're trying to solve with ready building block, and they can come up fast. Exactly same thing if I talk about these building blocks once again. There is in almost every office or at various places, you have security regulated areas. We all know about access cards. We all carry access cards. Only authorized persons people are allowed to enter into. Now, but we also know that there is a breach, that my access card being shared by somebody else, I give it to. Now, what they are doing is they put the camera on the gate. Only legitimate authorized person will go. Somebody who is not authorized, no need of access card, goes into that, and alarm should be raised. So see, more security is being brought in with the help of the AI thing. Exactly same solution I know at multiple educational institutes being built, because there are some administrative areas where students should not go. So they are trying to solve those problems. So if you look at all the patterns here, there are building blocks. In AWS, you will find the services which have these ready solutions. And now important thing is, you might simply say that, okay, the computer vision case, what if it does not identify my particular object, or what if it does not classify the object my way? Now the services have become advanced. You need not get into the entire pipeline once again. You bring your data, bring your own categories, pass it on, service will train the model for you and start using it. That means do not go into 2, 3, 4 months, 6 months cycle of training the model there. So it will be done. So the same thing happens for the conversational AI, same thing happens for the document processing that Dr. Puneet raised, same thing happens for the demand forecasting, which is a common business problem. So you bring the data, don't get into that, the pipeline there. So this is the major part. One part I want to highlight. Second part I want to highlight is like other than these.
I'm so sorry, but we have exceeded the session time limit, so we request you to kindly wrap up or conclude the session so we can move on to the audience question and answers. Thank you.
Sure. So I'll just a couple of more minutes.
Sure.
So yeah, just will quickly tell about the second part that we see and where the industry can leverage the solution is like we all talk about businesses capturing analytics. We all talk about machine learning services on cloud. We all talk about IoT services on cloud. Now the next part is integration of these. Now if you want to do some machine learning, it can be done from the same database or analytics data warehouse that you have. Just within the same database, you just fire the SQL queries. That means the developers now have access to the machine learning models. Fire the SQL query, models will be created. Second, we talked about IoT cases. If you see the government's push also through PLI for model deployment for drone services. So the machine learning services at AWS, when you build the model there, they can be deployed on the IoT or the IoT devices straight away. And if you see that you have outside, if you want to deploy the models on the phone and keep track that how the models are being used, how to regularly update the models on the field. All these convergence features are already available. That means now but people just have to think about this solution. They do not need to get into the nitty-gritty of the technology there. So that's the way I see the development going further down the line.
Perfect. Thanks, Sachin. So from perspective of innovation, like, so to summarize, AWS is trying to solve those repetitive, tasks, right, by providing a solution so that the developer community needs to only focus on solving the real problem that impacts directly to the business or the key question or key challenge that they're solving with. But that's it. Thanks so much, everyone. We quickly go into the questions, and the first question is very, very relevant what we are just discussing. And the question is, Prasad, how can we use AI technology more efficiently in India? As it automates the system, based on employment can be a bigger issue. Please tell how can we use this technology for generating more jobs for Indians? I would like to answer that very quickly. The automation does not guarantee. I mean, it's my opinion, of course. I come from a organization which is solving some problems, and based on what we know, we can answer according to that. So that being said, I think the automation does not lead to reduction of jobs. Rather, it gives space to improvise or let's say increase the efficiency and the productivity, and identify that for the new jobs or let's say. So, for example, I bring an ATM machine not take away the job. Right? That is also kind of automation. What we talk about today, AI, right? It is just maybe a subject to which we not fully exposed to, do not see the value around it. But I believe that we are in the right time. We saw a video of it. Right? All the problems is don't talk about the study coming from that everybody knows. Just talk about the 30 and the solution. So it is not actually taking away from the space for the news. Right? And there are a lot of studies around it. There are a lot of reports or even the reports of that automation in more and automation has bring more jobs rather than taking more. So the question is,
Rohit, I didn't get any of that. Your voice was breaking a lot. So I don't know if it's a problem with me or.
I also could not hear.
I was actually wondering about the same thing as well. I think we should do what Rahul asked us to. We'll just switch off the video and audio, if please, because the important points that we missed out on, unfortunately.
Yeah, I hope I am audible right now very well. I'll just quickly summarize that. In my opinion, the jobs are not taken away because of the automation. I think there are more jobs getting created. With the simple example of having an ATM machine leads to more, banks, more jobs at the banks, and more access to the cash to the customers of a bank, and that led to creating. That led banks for creating new business model and evolving and giving more jobs around the banking industry. So that's what I think. I would recommend that there are some learning programs around this specific subject, because it's a burning question for a lot of governments, a lot of global agencies as well as the organization, right? So if you just do Google out around the future of work, or how do we prepare for the disruption or next generation digital world, you may find lots and lots of material around it, and it will definitely be of a great help and a great insight. So we can move to the next question. Could you name any 3 affordable IoT service provider companies for the rural commerce? Any of the panel member would like to answer that? I'm not sure if I'm connected well. I see some issues maybe. Am I connected? Am I being heard well?
So let me take that, Rohit. I think you are talking about IoT service provider in the rural for rural commerce.
Yes.
Okay. So I think the most important point from an IoT service provider perspective is whatever challenges we had with the telcos. The reach is very, very important, because that is very, very geo specific. So depending on the area of focus, the rural area that you want to basically focus on, you should look at what services are available, from the telcos or the 5G providers, because NB-IoT is something which is enabling the macro last mile in terms of IoT adoption. The other innovation that has happened is from the LP WAN, the low power WAN providers, the likes of Sigfox and LoRa's. And they are also coming up and adapting and providing services in certain areas. Like I had been involved with the initiative around, Andhra Pradesh, where the farmers basically were getting connected through Sigfox, for them to basically, enable agri-tech. So it basically is very, very geo-specific. You have to look at which area you are going to focus, and then get in touch with the telcos who are strong, and go get in touch with service providers like LP WAN service providers, in that particular area.
Great. Thanks, Ajay. Indeed, insightful. The next question is.
Okay, we'll take this last question.
Okay.
Before we wrap the session. Thank you.
Yes. Maybe we can, take 2 questions together, right? The question number 3 and 4, right? And then we can take one more question. I'll just reframe the question of, comprising the major part of it. So the third one is, what are the major rules of government which helps us start AI startup, as well as what type of AI startups India needs currently? Maybe Rahul can respond on this very quickly, combining of the both.
I'm sorry, can you please repeat the question once again?
Rahul?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Can you please repeat the question once again?
What are the benefits that the governments are providing, right? And what is I think more or less it is around the AI startup, right? What kind of an AI startup India needs currently? Because Over and Bobble itself, they both are government recognized startups, and you have already been into the space. So if you could quickly just on the startup as well as the government perspective and India perspective.
Yeah. So there are so many things Indian government is doing. Most of the information is present in startupindia.gov.in, and they are also providing credits for multiple platforms. They are helping by organizing mentoring sessions. They are also helping. They are helping to connect us with other technology giants, and there's also a few programs run by FICCI, which is a tech exchange program. So last year we went. They took us to London, and they connected us with multiple people over there with whom we could potentially partner. We partnered with few of them, and it became a very fruitful relationship. So government is doing so much. It's just that people have to take initiative.
Absolutely, and there is a lot of information available on the Startup India platform,
Yep.
right? And there are a lot of activities also happening in collaboration with ASSOCHAM and all other organizations. I think the rest of the questions are maybe we can take it offline or something like that. Maybe
Perfect.
yeah. Yeah. That being said, I think we've covered up enough, and we've got a very interesting insights around it. I hope the audience and every one of us have thoroughly enjoyed this. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rohit, and thank you to all our speakers, all our panelists for taking out the time today. It's been a very engaging session today. Thank you once again. Let's end this session with thanking our session partner, Ambab Infotech Private Limited. Let's have our session partners video, please. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Thanks, everyone.